Hey everyone, welcome back to Get Your Geek On. We are here with a spoiler review of the Book of Boba Fett. We're talking Star Wars, which means I need my partner in arms, not Aaron, because he doesn't know anything about Star Wars.
This is me with Star Wars.
He doesn't know anything. I need RJ of the NerdyBrew, RJ's NerdyBrew. We got him back again for another Star Wars show. So I'm here with Aaron, of course, but also RJ. So RJ, say what's up, man.
What's up? Happy to be back. Happy to be here with the Get Your Geek On community and family, and it's just cool to be here, especially talking Star Wars with my buddy Robert and Aaron for sure.
Yay! Mostly Robert. I'm just here to nod most of the time. That's all I do.
We just need Aaron because he's got to actually press record, and he does I let him talk a little bit in Star Wars stuff, but
he lets me say this once in a while.
It's over 9,000.
That's about it.
Every once in a while. But we're here. We're talking spoilers. So again, if you haven't seen the Book of Boba Fett, go watch it, or maybe don't. I don't know.
Don't watch this.
You'll hear our thoughts in a minute. But go watch it because we are going to be spoiling a lot, and there is a lot to be spoiled in this show, to be honest. So we are going to be talking about it. So before we get into it, the Book of Boba Fett, written and directed, you had Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau doing a lot of the writing. Robert Rodriguez was involved as a showrunner, directed a few episodes as well. Star Wars is kind of famous for bringing in several directors. So Bryce Dallas Howard did an episode this season. I know Dave Filoni did, Robert Rodriguez, as I mentioned. So there's a lot of creators going on with this show. And we've got Tamora Morrison as Boba Fett. We've got Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand. David Pasquizzi, I think is how you say it, as the Major Domo. We had Jennifer Beals as Garsa Fwip. Pedro Pascal making his return as the Mandalorian, and appearances by a bunch of actors that you'll know: Mark Hamill, Rosario Dawson, Danny Trejo, Timothy Olyphant, Amy Sedaris, Corey Burton, which might be a name only known to a select few. We'll talk about his character in a little while as well. But yeah, there is so much going on in this series. I want to just get overall thoughts of what did you think of the series in totality. RJ, we're coming to you first, buddy. What did you think of the Book of Boba Fett?
All right, so I'll say this. My initial thoughts was it was great for Star Wars, right? There was a lot of things that they put together for a lot of fanfare for Star Wars. Great, appealing to the eyes. But when it comes to a delicious meal, it was very lackluster, just mediocre in that. And what I mean by it was a very average show. It was. Can I be honest? It wasn't that good of a show.
There it is.
It wasn't that good of a show. It was great for Star Wars.
Yeah.
It had a lot of cool moments, but cohesiveness and weight, narrative, a lot of that was missing. Developing the show, and I feel like when it comes to Robert Rodriguez, I love everything he's done. When it comes to his movies. But when it came to show running this show, he should have stepped back from it. Maybe as more of executive producer of set production or maybe stylistic choices. But when it comes to like holding it down on the fort of making a cohesive, good story, get out of here.
Aaron, why don't you go next? And I'll wrap us up when we talk about initial thoughts. So what are your thoughts?
I'm going to cry because I love Robert Rodriguez too. I'm a huge Robert Rodriguez fan. And I think, off camera, me and you've talked about it. I didn't like some of the episodes he directed. It was pretty sad. Overall, though, it was okay. I think the strongest episodes, which it's sad to say, are the ones that didn't have Boba Fett in them. They weren't focused on him. We were getting our side characters that we've grown in love already with Mando, with Grogu, Shannik, even Ahsoka coming out. I love that stuff with her. And I can tolerate a little bit of the Luke Skywalker stuff. I'll say that. I'm not the biggest fan of the Skywalkers. But overall, it wasn't terrible, but for someone who didn't know anything about a lot of the Star Wars stuff, like some of the appearances, I'm like, who's this? And we've talked about it before, and it's like, oh yeah, he's this character, he's kind of like this and this. And then we see somebody come out and it's like, he died in the worst way possible by a stick. All right, awesome. And it's stuff like that. Like there was a meme like, oh look, he's here. No one cares. Everybody wants Grogu. And that meme was true. Like I didn't care as much because it's like, oh look, Grogu. I want Grogu now. That's what I was about. But yeah, Robert Rodriguez, I don't know what happened. It's something I told Robert. I don't know if it's the writers, if it's the directing he was doing, or if it's Disney kind of putting their thumb down on him like, hey, we want you to do certain things, and these things are what we want. So you're going to have to comply if you want to kind of keep your job. That's where I wonder what happened to Robert Rodriguez. I would love to like talk to him more and get like some info from him. Like, hey, were you tied up some way, or is this what your real choice was? And why did you go that way?
Yeah, I have to say, I agree with both of you guys. And for me, coming into the show, I think I said this before, I wasn't super excited for a Boba Fett show to begin with because Boba Fett has always just been an overhyped character to me that I haven't been too crazy about. And so what I have to say is that this show kind of lived down to my expectations. Like it was a show about a character that I didn't really care for, and the show never made me care for him. And so unfortunately, as you mentioned, the best episodes are the ones that he wasn't really in. I do have to say, it felt very uneven as well. Like there were some sequences that were amazing, some action sequences that were really cool, and then other action sequences that felt like they had no weight. They felt very staged, and just like there was moments where it just felt like really like you could tell they were on a stage as opposed to being in the world. And I don't know that I really felt that at all with any of the Mandalorian stuff or other Star Wars content, at least since the prequel era. There's definitely some stuff where you're like, that's a green screen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think, the biggest takeaway that I have is that this story was kind of inconsequential. Like, I'm not sure what it accomplished. I'm not sure, why we had to tell this story. And when we talk about Star Wars, there's so many characters, there's so many planets, the galaxy is huge. And so if you're going to pick out a story to tell me, it should matter. And I'm not sure that really anything in this story really mattered, except, some of the stuff for Mandalorian. And even that, I don't know that I liked how quickly some of that happened, where it's like, we spent an entire season finding a Jedi for, Grogu to go live with.
Yeah.
And he lives there for, like 20 minutes of screen time. And then he's back with our main character. And I have some problems with some of that narrative. So I think that's my biggest takeaway, is that it ultimately, I'm not sure that it matters. And I even had somebody who was like, oh, I need to watch that. I haven't gotten into it. And I'm like, you can probably just watch episodes 5, 6, and 7. Like, I don't think you're going to miss anything narratively by not watching the first 4 episodes. And that's really disappointing to me. So that's kind of, our overall thoughts. It sounds like we're all on pretty similar pages here. Let's double down. Let's get into our negatives. We're going to end on the positives. So we're going to talk about some of our least favorite things in the series. Aaron, I want you to go first. What is one of your least favorite things? We're going to each pick out 2 least favorite things. So just start with one.
Just 2? You
Just
told me I
2.
could pick 27.
That's not true.
I know. It was worth a try. I think, gosh, I think where to start, honestly, on it, because some of it was just, I think you said it best, some of the way they stage everything, where it is very much this is a green screen, or we're doing this stuff for just simple effect stuff. And so one of the things I will say is the choreography in general of the fights, some of the way the lasers played out. And I know you said one, but I'm gonna kind of splice it, like the scene where the guy is holding up the other Chewbacca. I can't think of his name. The black-haired one. Yeah, he's holding them up, and he's like, "Oh, bad guys, let me do a twirl in the middle of combat and then shoot." Oh, did you really need to do that? Or like you said, I think before, I'll give you cover fire, but I'm 2 feet away, so I'll cover you. Don't worry, you'll get covering fire. Like stuff like that. Like you could plan this stuff out better. So I would say, as much as I like the fighting, and we got to see Mando like take some bullets and get hurt a little bit, so to say, you know what? It didn't hit right. It just didn't hit the way I thought it was always going to hit. So that would be one. Can we go with the second one, or you want me to do?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, the choreography. I think there were a few, especially the hand-to-hand stuff, all felt very odd. Like the fight with the first time Chrysanthemum like infiltrates Jabba's palace, and they had that big fight with everybody. Like, I did not like anything in that fight. I thought it was a terrible fight. Just not just in the staging, but there was like, I didn't understand anybody's power set. Like, who was able to take a punch from him and be fine.
Over 9,000!
Yeah, it just ultimately, I think that fight in particular really highlighted for me the unevenness, because some of the stuff like in that final episode, the Boba and Mando like final standoff where they're like flying in the air and they're back to back and they're taking, like, that was really cool. That was done well. And then that one was not so much. So I don't know. There was definitely, it felt like the choreography was lackluster in some areas for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. It was hard for me to say two things in a row.
He's like, hold on, let me go take out my scroll.
Wide variety. But I will say this. Just to bring it up, I'm mad that supporting characters were better than the lead. How are we so hyped for Mando season 3, and then we're also seeing his number 2, a supporting character, Fennec Shand, be the gravitas through the whole season of the show, and he's just holding his helmet, walking around, and she's like, things don't work like that. The world doesn't operate like this. And he's like, well, I hear you, but I don't care.
But I'm Boba Fett, so.
And then also with that whole infiltration of Chrysanthemum, making it into his palace, he has the setup of all of those guards, right? He has the Mod children, he has the Gregorian guards, and he has Fennec Shand. And this dude was able to go in his bedroom and jack him up. And it's like, where were you? Like, he didn't held any of them accountable for that. And it's like, these lack of common sense narratives, like Aaron was bringing out, of how come, you're shooting certain ways or moving certain ways. It doesn't make sense naturally, so it wouldn't even make sense in the story.
Yeah, and I think that's really one of my least favorite things, is you kind of touched on it already, is the characterization of both Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. As your two co-leads, Boba Fett, what we know of him before this show is that he's a ruthless bounty hunter who, hates Jedi and, kind of harbors that hatred from when his dad was killed. And that's really all we knew. So there's a lot of directions to go from there. And ultimately, when we meet this character in this series at his earliest point, where he's getting out of the Sarlacc pit, he, immediately is captured by these Tuscan Raiders. And then he seems to already have gone through his character growth. Like, there's another prisoner there that he's trying to help. He's like, come with me. And I'm like, that doesn't like this. It felt very odd. Like, we didn't actually see him grow into this guy who was maybe a little bit softer. And even the reasoning they give for him wanting to be the leader of this family or wanting to run this criminal empire, they didn't, like, it was all tell, no show. Like, they didn't show us why that was important to him. All they did was just tell us, I'm tired of, having, somebody else tell me where to go and I might die. I'm tired of, we shouldn't die for other people. And then it's like, yeah, but then you bring in all these foot soldiers for you and like, you do the same thing. So I'm like, I don't understand. You're not like, it's not a Daenerys Targaryen, like, I'm going to break the wheel. Like, you literally are just like, I'm just going to be the guy at the top. Like, that's all I care about. And so it was a weird characterization for him. We didn't see much growth. And Fennec, the reason I include her in this as well is that I loved that character in Mando, season 2, and really in the Bad Batch, when we got more of her. I was just really invested in her character. And in this one, it was like she existed just to tell Boba Fett that he was dumb. And he was, don't get me wrong, like, he made a lot of dumb decisions. but I just felt like we had one action sequence with her, and I think like episode 2 where she was like chasing people down, or that might have even been the end of episode 1. And then after that, pretty much everything she does is off screen. Like she barely shows up for that chrysanthemum fight. She, kills a bunch of people at the end of the series, but all of that is off screen. It was just, I felt very let down by the use of Fennec Shand. And so that was, I think, that was my hope going into the series, is we're going into a Boba Fett series, and like make me care about this character, give me something to latch onto. And I think that just the way that they executed whatever their vision was, it just felt like he was not very smart, not very strategic. Like I still don't understand how he didn't understand that all of the other clans were totally going to betray him. Like that was so obvious from the moment he had that meeting. And so it's just like they played him off as not very smart. And then on top of that, this, catharsis, or this person he became, we never really saw that growth. So it really rubbed me the wrong way. And ultimately, I think that's why I didn't really enjoy the series, because sometimes you can tell a story that doesn't really matter narratively as long as the characters are really interesting. It's like, oh, here's a slice of life, and you can just get, some interesting characters doing interesting things. And you can get past the fact that it doesn't matter to the narrative. But in this one, it's kind of like we had both, because the characters were so thin and just, I don't know, they weren't realized for me.
No, and I kind of agree with you. And it's something that me and you've talked about too. And I guess kind of leading into my number 2 for why I don't, my number 2 bad, I guess. You're right. There's not a lot of narrative there for everything. And it's something I sent Robert. I don't know if you told RJ your stuff about it or showed him that Boba Fett's a chump, and that he's always been a chump. And this whole article, I sent it to Robert. I'll send it to you, RJ, later. Yeah. But this whole article basically talks about how he's just a chump. And this whole film, or this whole series, is about just that, him being a chump. And I agree, like talking to Robert more and seeing some of the action scenes, it's like, is he just really damn lucky? Like, you're not really doing anything like really badass. You're just kind of there. You're relying on Mando. You're relying on Fennec. You're relying on the other guys, like the Power Rangers, to do their thing. Like, come on, dude. But I think mine comes back to like what you said, storytelling. Tell me a good story and I'm okay. And there were so many holes in this one that Swiss cheese has less holes at this point, I feel like. We get the whole thing of the Rancor. I want to ride it. We're never going to talk about this again. Bye, Danny Trejo. We're never going to see you again. Like, we're not going to see any development in that. Cool. Yeah. That makes no sense. I had no love for the Power Ranger wannabes, I call them at this point, because that's all they really are. Like, I don't care if they died. If they would have died, I'd be like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I cared way more about the Gamorrean guards than I did about them.
Exactly. It's like, when they fell off, I felt bad for them. I was like, I like those guys. But like, yeah, none of these characters gave us any development. And I think that's what's sad about seeing somebody like Robert Rodriguez at the helm for most of these episodes. What happened? He's really good at storytelling. So where did it go wrong? Again, is it Disney saying we want certain things? Is it, other stuff going on in the background? Is it the writers having complete control? I mean, and then on top of that, the whole Luke Skywalker making Grogu choose between the armor and the sword. I'm like, why? Why can't he have both? What's the big deal? And there's like someone like me who doesn't understand a lot of the Star Wars lore doesn't get that, because it's like, why are you making him choose? Especially a line I told you that you said you didn't like, Robert, the whole, well, only Sith steal in absolute. Okay, but you're giving him a choice and he has to pick one or the other. It's absolutely this or absolutely that. Now that line makes no sense to somebody like me who's like, oh, that's the whole thing when these Star Wars nerds go off. Oh, well, only Siths are like that. Luke just did that. So is he a Sith now? Like, I don't get it. So yeah, the story just wasn't there for someone like me who is somebody they want, like a newcomer, someone that doesn't know all this stuff and wants to come in and be like, hey, why does my friend Robert love this? Why does RJ, why do these guys like it? Let me jump in and see. And I watch this and I'm like, I'm going to go watch Mando season 2 again, because that's all I want to watch. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Give me Grogu. Or Grogu. That's all
they did
now.
that.
They did.
And the thing is that you bring up, Aaron, is that for me, I am someone who enjoys Star Wars, right? And I also grow up on the EU, the expanded universe, and now they're considered legends. And so I had an expectation and that was probably my fault. But I knew Boba Fett prior of why he had such a big name behind himself, and the other exploits that he's done, and so we had the Mandalorian become such a good hit, good show, and it has good people behind it. And everyone has been saying, give Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, give them, creative control over Star Wars. And then I'm gonna say that because of this show, it's like, let's pump the brakes on that statement.
Wait, what happened? Why did you miss?
I can't disagree with that, because when you look at the creative aspects of this show, that's where it fell the flattest. The storytelling, like we've been talking about, the characters, those pieces have been some of the pieces that everyone is complaining about. So what about you, RJ? I know, I've listed one, Aaron's got a couple. Did you have a least favorite thing that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah. He's like, hold on, I gotta get the scroll back out. Let me see what I want to pick from.
Yeah. You know what? It's just that the characterization or the less involvement of Boba Fett. He didn't get a chance to really take lead in his own show. For example, we just talked about it. There wasn't him with enough bonding with the Rancor. So let's say if the show was built out an hour episode, or if it had more episodes a season, let's say for at least 3 of those episodes, after an entire episode, he goes and bonds with the Rancor to say, hey, Rancor, this was my day today. You know what I mean? So it could be that more impactful for that revelation at the season finale. And him not doing enough calling the shots, or it would have been cool if he went with Mando to talk with Cobb Vanth, because Cobb Vanth was the man who had his armor. Like, there are these things that could have tied the narrative a lot better if Boba Fett was more in the forefront.
Yeah. I think we've talked about it already, but yeah, Boba Fett taking a backseat in his own show. It's either somebody messed up the title of the show, or
2.5,
or as they were writing the story, they just realized they didn't have enough. And I think I agree with you. Like, there are things that they could do, because that storyline with the Rancor. I thought about that. It wasn't something I was going to bring up, but I thought about it too. It's like, wait, like you didn't actually plant the seeds for that. I know you think you did, because you said, like, I want to ride this one day. But no, like, you actually really didn't plant that he was, actually developing a bond. Maybe he was practicing, like, doing that, because if that's your first time riding a Rancor, dude's killer. Like, that's pretty amazing. And I don't know. I think. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
No, I was gonna say, but how you said that, like, we don't set that up, and both of you touched it. The one thing that Star Wars does bad for me personally is a timeline. How long is this all playing out? Is this playing out in a few days, a few weeks, months? So it's like, did he get the Rancor and then 2 days later they're invading? That's not enough time to me to learn how to ride that thing. It's like trying to ride a horse. I assume you get it to trust you. You got to mount and learn all that stuff. It's like, what's the timeline? And that's one thing Star Wars has been bad at to me, unless I bug you and it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. What about here? Trying to plan, like, where's the timeline at? And that's where I get confused.
The events of this show, they really play fast and loose with timeline. And honestly, my other least favorite thing that I was going to bring up is just the entire structure of the show. Having it be, in the first 4 episodes, we had this, like, half of our time was in the past and half of our time was in the present, but they weren't like traditional flashbacks where they actually mattered to the present story and we're like driving it forward. It was more just like, we want to tell this story and this story, but they don't relate to one another specifically, on top of which, and so to me, it's like, well, then why split it up? Just tell it sequentially. Just tell us, start from the Sarlacc pit, and we get a couple episodes with the Tuscan Raiders, and then, then we can move forward. Like, I didn't need it to be broken up that way. Then we've already touched on it, the structure where in the middle of the series for 2 episodes, our focus completely shifts off of Boba Fett. He makes one 30-second appearance where he doesn't say a word in 2 episodes of television. It's insane. And so, like, structuring it that way just was so odd for me. And I really, that's why I couldn't get into those first 4 episodes, because even though there was some really good stuff in those episodes, every episode kind of left me feeling like, why are they telling the story this way? Why is it like this? And then episode 5 hit, and I was watching it the whole time, and every 5 minutes I would just be like, okay, so now is when we're going to cut to Boba Fett. Like, okay, now we're going to cut to Boba Fett. And it's just like the episode just kept going. And I was like, okay, we got to the credits, and I was like, well, at least we're going to get a post-credit stinger of Boba Fett in his own show. Nope. It was like, I could not believe that we went an entire episode without even seeing him. And it just like, it threw me out of that episode. I know there were a ton of people that were like, it was my favorite episode. And it was probably my favorite episode too. But my first watch of it was really weird because I kept waiting for Boba Fett to show up on his show. And so ultimately the structure of the show just really threw me out of it. And I have to say, like, I want the cut that's just sequential. I want that. So I'm not sure why they made it this way.
I loved it. I love that episode 5. It was the best episode, even objectively, when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to visuals, narrative, all of it. It was a great episode. It had nothing to do with Boba Fett. And another thing about that episode, in regards to the whole overall of the show, we didn't need the last 15 minutes of him building the N1.
No,
we didn't need that whatsoever, because it needed to go back to what needed for the story of Boba Fett.
Yeah, it should have been more like maybe Fennec heading over there or something.
What was her adventure? Let's see if she dealt with the locals in town going to talk to Boba. Like, what makes, like, there was nothing there to say that these are his people and that is, he's the daimyo. It was just, he just declared it, and there was no reason behind it. The show has a lot of stuff, we can just keep going. We can make this a long time about how it's not a good show.
Well, and that's a good point. So maybe now's the time to transition to the things we did like.
Robert said I can't bash it the whole time.
We'll talk about some things that we did like, because there were things that are good in this show. There were some cool moments and cool things like that. So I'm interested, Aaron, you got to have something good to say about the show, right?
I got to see Power Rangers again.
No, you already said you didn't like that. So
I like their bikes. Something I did like, I actually did, again, going with episode 5, learning more about the Darksaber and how his people are kind of like trying to get back together, his original clan, and how they're now shunning him, and he has to now make up for taking off his helmet. Like, I like that whole part, that whole storyline of like, what is he going to do now? Is he going to come back to them, or is he going to kind of do his own thing now? So I am a little more curious on that. I liked episode 5 again. I felt was the best. I liked the storytelling. I liked learning a little bit more about the Darksaber. I like the fact that even at the end, he still doesn't even really know how to wield it. We see him use it again, and it's still very odd how he wields it, because it's not a weapon he's proficient with. Like, it's a sword at the end of the day, so he apparently doesn't know how to use it. So I don't know. I think the storytelling of that episode was probably my favorite thing. We got to see more about him and how he's going to react to, and obviously it's leading to season 3, how he's going to play off with, okay, do I join my old clan back, or do I form my own thing? Because he is the clan of 2 is his mark now. So it's like, what do you do on that one? So it's like, I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that learning more from that scene and finding out, like, for RJ and I, probably like, we have confirmation of this being like, these are the people that were the Saxon. They were like the people that really were like exiled from Mandalore because they wanted to still be warriors, whereas the rest of Mandalore was trying to kind of be more in line with the Republic and start to instead of being like independent warrior culture, it was like, okay, we're going to be part of a greater thing. And so this group that is now turned into this cult was basically the warrior sect that were exiled. And so finding that out, like I think we kind of suspected it, but now it's definite. Like that's what we know. Learning more about how the Darksaber works, and that it's not just kind of a standard weapon. You have to kind of connect to it in order to really wield it appropriately. Yeah, I mean that was all cool stuff as well. I did like that. Again, I'm not sure it belonged in this show. In fact, I think I'm positive it didn't belong in this show, but it was cool. What about you, RJ?
All right. So I'm gonna transition here. So I have to start off with this negative before I get into this positive. So
oh God, it's a sandwich. Negative, positive.
So this with Grogu and Mando being back, that hurts the narrative of season 2. All the anticipation, all the build up, even the moment of him taking off his helmet, between the connection of Goku, because he did it twice in that season, but when it comes to him and Grogu, I called him Goku. With him and Grogu, that connection of the face touch was just an emotional point that needed for the character and for the viewership as well. And when we start this, him being introduced into Boba Fett's show, and now it went back to the status quo of them being together, that really just took away from everything that we watched the Mando show. So now it's more like, yay, toys, merchandising, moving forward.
You can now make a toy with the scale arm or the armor.
Yeah, with the scale armor. New toys coming. Yep. And
chainmail.
So my positives
after I poop on it.
Yeah, is that that episode was my favorite episode. I love the direction from Bryce Dallas Howard. I love that the introduction of Mando of like in the butcher shop and you see his silhouette, and then he's like, he got to his original line from when he first showed up, and he says you could bring it warm or you could be brought in cold, and I just love that. I love that. I love the dance at the end with the Tuscan Raiders. So it was like another Maui dance for Tamura Morrison. As I said, there was a lot of cool moments within the show. And I'll leave it at that so far.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things was, and you just hit on it, is the Tuscan Raiders. Like, as much as I didn't like the structure of the show and that we kept jumping back and forth, that was the only thing keeping me tethered in those first 4 episodes. Was I really did like the Tuscan Raider culture that we were getting, that we were learning more about them, that we were seeing that connection build between them and Boba Fett, and kind of their okay, we're going to push back, we're going to fight. It was a little bit of the white savior complex, but we're going to get away with it because Boba Fett's not a white guy, so we can still do it. Like, they still kind of hit almost all of the normal beats. But I just think like that train sequence was amazing, and honestly, it left me cold the way it ended. I didn't like that, like he just came back to the camp and they were all dead, and we didn't ever get anything more of them. I thought we were going to get like a few of them returning in episode 7, like they didn't kill all of us and here they are to help Boba Fett. Like, I really thought we were going to get that, and nope, that didn't happen. So it didn't end maybe the way that I would have liked it to, but I did like all of those pieces where we actually got more with these Tuscan Raiders, which, in the original 6 movies, mostly, they don't make an appearance in Revenge of the Sith, and they're not much in Empire or Jedi, but we see them in the first Star Wars, we see them in Phantom Menace, we see them in Attack of the Clones, and they're always portrayed as these villains. They're antagonists for all of our heroes. And it wasn't until we started to see Din Djarin have some interaction with them in his show, and now we got this show where we're starting to see a little bit more nuanced version of the Tuscan Raiders, and I really liked that. I appreciated that, and I could have done an entire show about the Tuscan Raiders, honestly. Like, I was enjoying that show a lot. The other thing that I have to say, it's one of those things where it's like, again, I don't know that the execution was where I would have wanted it to be, but Cad Bane in live action, like his standoff with Cobb Vanth was awesome. So, and especially that first standoff too with Cad and Boba Fett, where they're just like talking and going back and forth, and Cad Bane is just needling him, and you can see Boba Fett's like itching to get into this fight. I really enjoyed all that. Again, their final battle where Boba Fett defeats him with a move that we didn't actually see him practice. Again, the same thing with the Rancor. It's like, show us him practicing with that stick. Show us him doing that move on other people, because ultimately, like, that would allow us to have that make sense.
It would. It really would have. But it's like, I got a stick. Jab, killed him. You died from a stick. You're supposed to be a badass.
Cad Bane cannot be dead. If Cad Bane is dead at the end of this, like, I'm gonna be severely disappointed. Like, even more so than I already was with this show. Like, if we got live action Cad Bane for that short, and then he gets taken out by, as you would say, a chump. I just don't know. Like, this is the guy I saw facing off with Jedi in Clone Wars. Like, he's better than this. Why is he, getting taken down by? And I know that they were trying to like show off this growth and this stick that Boba Fett has, and it was his time with the Tuscan Raiders that allowed him to defeat Cad Bane. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't actually show him like even practicing that move. Like, we saw him practicing with the stick, but we never saw him like getting up from the ground by knocking someone else down. Like, and they could have, because they showed him getting knocked to the ground like by the other Tuscan Raider, like
several
training him.
times.
So they could have shown him like learning that move, and they didn't. So it's just another one of those weird things. So we're supposed to be in the positive section, and we keep like veering back to the negative things. But I just have to say, Cad Bane in live action was awesome. He's one of my favorite characters, and so seeing him, it wasn't perfect, but it was really good. And bringing back Corey Burton to do the voice, it was just like, that's such an iconic part of that character. So it made perfect sense, and I loved it.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
No, I disagree. I agree with what you're saying on that. Like, I want more of some of these characters, but
there's this. All right, so I'm gonna say this about the show. This is showing what Disney initiative is, and they're saying it right to our face of let the past die. So we have this iconic character that we all, like, the fans have been loving for a long time of Boba Fett. I know you're lukewarm on him, Robert, but majority speaking,
sure,
people were like, this guy's awesome, right? And we had it in the Disney era of our other hero, of Luke Skywalker, and then they put a whole different performance on him, and we're like, wait, what is this? And then now we're seeing Boba Fett, and we're like, wait, what is this? And just they're showing their whole initiative of like, you know what, we're moving away from that, and Mando is the guy that we need to follow. Mando is who your eyes need to be on. Moving forward in this Disney era, and we want you to know where we are, because we're letting the past die. So that's where they're at with it, and they're showing us right in our face, straight flashing disrespect.
I think Aaron and I were talking about this too. It's like the Disney era Star Wars has 100% been about trying to bring in new fans. They are not trying to, like, as much as people say fan service and all that stuff, the way that they're doing fan service by bringing back these characters and then changing them, like, they actually are showing, as you said, they don't care about people that love the originals. They don't care about people that love the prequels. What they're actually saying is, we want new fans because we know you guys aren't going to leave us. We know you won't abandon us because you love Star Wars and you'll keep coming back. And it's very frustrating as a Star Wars fan, because they're right. They've got me. They've got their hooks in me, because this world is incredible. I love Star Wars. I still love Star Wars. I love, as much as I, bash on the prequels, there's stuff in those prequels that is so interesting. Is it executed perfectly? No, but there's some really great stuff in there. The Clone Wars stuff, there's like 100 episodes, or probably even more. Are, 35 of them kind of bad? Probably, but the rest of them are really good. And so like there's just so much, I wish that George Lucas always talked about balance. I wish we didn't have to balance bad with good Star Wars. Can we just have all good Star Wars? That's what I want. And so yeah, I think this was one of those. It's definitely the first Disney Plus miss. We've only had 3 seasons of Star Wars on here, and this was a miss from a standpoint of a series. But I am interested, like moving forward with some of these characters, or even with other Star Wars, like what are you still excited for, RJ? I know we were disappointed by this series, but what are you still excited for? What are you looking forward to next? Do you want to see anything more with, some of these characters that we just got introduced to or learned more about in this series, or are you just looking at, Kenobi and that kind of stuff?
I'm kind of done with Boba Fett. Like if it comes back as a show, this particular book, I don't need any more volumes. This is the one volume that I need. But moving forward, right now, I mean, it's hard for me to say it. I mean, it was super crazy. Like I never thought that I would say these words, but Ahsoka is my favorite character. So I'm looking forward to her show, and I'm loving Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka. I just feel like her characterization is like very accurate. I'm kind of lukewarm on Obi-Wan. It's cool that Ewan is coming back. And it's probably very interesting about the series, but I just like what kind of story is there to tell with him being on Tatooine, or he might go off and they're gonna make something new. But at the same time, just as Han Solo, I didn't need it. I didn't ask for it. It's not important growing my ideals of what Obi-Wan is. But it's cool as a fan. You know what I mean? Like it's cool, as more Star Wars coming back.
It's almost like this show. It's like, do we really need it? Like we're taking a legacy character and filling in some gaps. But are those gaps interesting? Do we need that story?
Yeah. And I want to be like someone like, give me all the Star Wars. I want to eat it up. But it's like you gave me a couple, samples of things, and I'm like, I'll pick and choose when I'm ready to eat.
You don't want this? No.
I'm not excited for Andor. I didn't like Andor in Rogue One, so I'm like, what? It's gonna be just him being a rebel, doing dirty things as dirty people, because it's like usually what Star Wars is. So I don't know. I'm hesitantly, waiting on how the rest of the Star Wars world grows.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Aaron? What are you excited for? Anything from this series you want to see them continue?
I mean, I love Ahsoka. That's one thing I really have liked whenever I get to see that character. I'm a Rosario Dawson fan, so I would love to keep seeing her play her. I want to see where that character goes. I like that, and I really want more of Cobb Vanth. I want to see what's going to happen with him. We got the post credit of him in that healing chamber, like a Saiyan would. Saiyans go in there too. And now we have him getting modded, it looks like, because that guy was there to mod him. So I'm curious where he's going to go. I would like to see, is he still going to kind of be a good guy?
Just don't mod that hair. That hair is too beautiful. Don't touch it.
He's going to fix that. He's going to make it like never, ever move like one little piece out of place. Like, nah, it's never going to happen now. Don't worry about it. You don't need to put gel in there. Nothing. It's just perfect all the time.
I don't know how he gets that hair in a sand planet, but...
That's what he's doing. Maybe he's like trying to figure it out so he can get it for other people. That's all he's trying to do.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm excited for those two characters. I would love to see more of them. I mean, you know me, I've loved Ahsoka, even in Mandalorian when I was asking you questions. Like, I liked her from then. I liked how she was. I'm liking her even now when she was still, I mean, she was trying to help out, like let Mando know what's going on, like what the training's about a little bit. I don't like the secrecy stuff about it all, but that's just me with the whole Jedi thing. Like, hey, it's still, he raised this kid for the last couple of years. Like, cut him some slack. He needs to understand things too.
Yeah, well, and I really wish, just to touch on that real quickly, like Ahsoka has this experience of, her master becoming, a Sith Lord because of his attachment. So like her perspective makes perfect sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it doesn't, like RJ, you talked about them messing with Luke. Like Luke has a completely different experience. He saved his father because of their bond, because of his emotion, like all of those things. It's like he should have a completely different perspective, and like seeing them almost clash over that perspective would have made perfect sense.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Luke kind of is just doing exactly what, like makes sense from the Ahsoka perspective, it didn't make sense. I'm with you guys. I want to see more Ahsoka. Cobb Vanth for sure. Like it comes back to that structure thing where like RJ, you mentioned, like the Star Wars wants our eyes on Mando. The way the show ended, like it should have. We got two button scenes with like we got one with Fennec and Boba and one with Mando and Grogu, and then we got the post credits with Cobb Vanth. In a Boba Fett show, the Boba Fett like little stinger should have been after the Mando one. Like we should have gotten Mando and Grogu in their ship and then go to Boba and Fennec, where like they say is, what are we going to do now? I don't know if this is really us. Maybe there's somebody else that should do it. Then you go to credits and then you get Cobb Vanth and you go, wait, are they setting up Cobb Vanth? Like, is he going to be now the guy that's in charge? And yes, I'm interested in that. I like Cobb Vanth. So it's another structure thing that didn't make sense with this show. But yeah, I want more Cobb Vanth. 100% opposite with you on this one, RJ. I want Andor. I liked him in Rogue One. I liked the version of a character that we really had never seen before, which is, this rebellion foot soldier who was willing to do the dirty deeds. Like, we know that it's not like those original movies are like black and white, bad guys, good guys. There's no room for gray. Cassian Andor is a gray character. Like there's stuff that he's doing that you're like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of that villain thing where it's like, I can agree with your perspective, but I can't agree with your actions. And with him, it's like you kind of are getting that from a hero side where like he's doing things that we don't agree with or that we would frown upon, but we kind of are able to, kind of go along with him because we know he's ultimately fighting alongside the rebellion. But I want to see them explore more of, like how the separatist eventually became the Rebel Alliance and like how that aspect of it, kind of played together, because we know that's kind of a part of his backstory. So that's what I'm interested in that show. I am interested in that. I have the same concerns you do with Kenobi, where it's like, I'm very excited that Ewan McGregor's coming back. I have concerns over what they're going to do with this. They're bringing back, Hayden Christensen, and I'm like, and they talked about like, we're going to have another battle with them. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that we need another one. Like it seemed like it ended really well in Revenge of the Sith. Like, what are they going to do to add on to this? So yeah, I love Star Wars. I will always love Star Wars, but this type of show and these types of story choices that they're making do make me, kind of go like, when I start introducing my kids to Star Wars, there's going to be some stuff I leave out.
I'm going to tell them this is really the stories.
Yeah, right. Let me show you the good things. Let me show you the gospel.
Right.
We're not going to touch the Old Testament.
No. What's this one? No, don't touch that.
No. But one thing that you did bring up, Robert, for me, all right, I just want to, I get it. It was the Empire. It's the rebellion. It's the foundation of Star Wars. And I needed the prequel era, and I needed the Old Republic era. I needed that. I wanted to know the growth and what led up to why I love the world so much. Even though that stuff is legends, that was my perspective for it. Excuse me. And then we have the new High Republic, and it ties into the narrative of the Jedi as it is. But that for Andor and the Rebel, I don't need it. I don't need that no more. and then the thing is, moving forward, they did not handle moving forward well. And that's why I kind of appreciate The Mandalorian as it's taking place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. That is a good place to know where things are gonna be at, or you know, for the future. But as we went 30 years into the future, no.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm with you. Like, there's a lot to explore in Star Wars, but sometimes somebody needs to come along. It's almost, you know, like I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, especially of the books. And, you know, there was a time there in the middle of writing that series where it seemed like J.K. Rowling didn't have an editor anymore. And, you know, it's just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, we're going a little bit too far down some of these rabbit holes. We don't need all this stuff. I feel like somebody at Star Wars needs to go like, yeah, we need to scale back. Less is more, guys. Like, we don't need to tell every moment of every character. Like, give us some interesting stuff, interesting snippets. Like, I'm very interested in the Ahsoka series, like you guys said. But yeah, I don't need every time period explored. And yeah, the High Republic stuff, like, I think they announced Acolyte is going to be a High Republic series. I'm really interested in that because it's a story point that we haven't really touched on outside of books and comics. And so, yeah, can you make something super interesting there with characters that we don't really know anything about? Okay, let's see what you do there. Because I think that's where Star Wars has been successful over this kind of Disney period, outside of maybe the sequel trilogy, is when they're like telling new stories about new characters. As soon as they start relying on old characters, whether it be Luke or Boba Fett or, you know, some of these other characters, it seems like they don't know what to do with them, and they haven't been executing that well. So give me something new. Give me something, you know, characters that I don't know yet, and, you know, tell me an interesting story, and I'll be there. And you'll hopefully hook in some new Star Wars fans again, because yeah, I don't think Book of Boba Fett is going to do that.
Nope, not at all. Again, the guy who doesn't know anything was not happy with it. So that is your fan base.
Saying that who's a casual viewer, a casual fan, a casual partaker, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the show, because this whole panel could have been divided of Aaron loving it and us having our criticisms, but we're unanimous.
Right. Exactly. It's like, I literally just want to go watch Mando again. That's all I want to do. It's like, I just want to watch Mandalorian again, and that's all. Yeah. I don't care if I ever see this. So
well, and I know, like, we've been talking as the series is going on, like me and RJ, and I know you were like high on it when it started. There was a lot of potential with the show as it was starting off, and I was more pessimistic than you were. I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know if they're gonna stick the landing, and unfortunately, it sounds like I was proven right.
Yeah, I was really happy at moments. I've read the comics, you know, and I was like, Black Chrysanthemum is making it. I was like, oh my goodness, you know. And there was just moments that were introducing into Star Wars or into this show, and I thought that they were going to continue the momentum of these moments, but they just had a nice regular walking pace. And just let it falter, you know.
I hear you. Well, yeah, it sounds like we were all on the same page with this series. We all wanted it to be maybe something that it wasn't going to be, but there are some cool things. There's some cool moments in this show.
Luke was beautiful. Luke was great to look at. The CG for Luke was awesome.
They definitely upped their game when it came to that. It looked a lot better than the end of Mando season 2. And ultimately, there's a lot of cool moments in the show. There's some cool effects. There's some not so cool effects. There's, you know, the slowest Vespa chase in history. But at the end of the day, it's Star Wars, so we're going to talk about it. RJ, thank you again for hopping over to get your geek on and you know, talking Star Wars with us. Where can the people find you and find out what you're doing?
You can find me at YouTube at The NerdyBrew, where we talk TV, movies, and everything in between, all while drinking a cup of coffee. That's where I'm at. And thank you for having me. And I always love talking to you guys.
Always love having you, man. Always. So on that note, that's RJ. That's Robert. I'm Aaron. And thank you for listening. And definitely check us out at Official GYG on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time, guys, get your geek on.
Bye.